Vamos que nos vamos. De moneda tengo ya. Bueno, a ver, monedas serán menos que los puntos que da, eso sí, eso es así. No se ve una puta mierda, vamos. Departamento de Policía de Chicago. No te digo yo a ti que el malo es un ex policía.
0600 horas. Yo, el agente Frank Hooper, descubrí que uno o más individuos habían accedido sin autorización al depósito de pruebas del 1612 de West State Street. Entre los objetos desaparecidos había pruebas recuperadas del piso del antiguo agente del FBI, Héctor Munday, incluidos libros, ropa, notas, herramientas de cirugías y equipo dental. La teoría actual es que se trata de un acto obra de cazadores de trofeos que buscan objetos relacionados con el caso. Fin del informe.
Pues no sé yo qué trofeo es hacerte con los souvenirs de un sitio donde haya pasado algo así, chungo, madre mía. Lumet, artista.
Señor Dumet, quiero a mi equipo muerto. Los llevaré hasta allí el fin de semana. Sí. Hágalo.
No me lo creo.
Muy agradecido, señor Dumet. Quiero a mi equipo. ¿Está muerto? Los llevaré de fin de semana. Hágalo.
Es falso. Vaya montaje. No es así como habla Charlie.
Hicieron un montaje, un fuera de contexto.
Héctor Waylon Munday.
Licenciado en Psicología.
Quizá haya otro barco en la isla.
Ah, con su puta madre.
Prefiero los perros. Venga. Ni hablar. No mires abajo. No mires abajo. No mires abajo. Manipular el sello supone un delito federal.
¡Hostia! No voy a derrejar el cuello, tío. Todo por guiarme por el acción ese. Digo, es una acción, tengo que hacer una acción, venga, ya está. Y va y le corta el cuello, tío. Y digo, ya está. Aparece el perro y desaparece. Ya está, yo lo sabía.
Agua.
Agua, yo creo que eso no estaba doblado. Uy, trofeo, la luz es mía.
¡Sí, joder! ¡Eh! ¡Chicos! ¡Arriba! ¡Kate! ¡Jamie! ¡Aquí!
¡Hostia!
qué cojones huele? Dios.
Ahí estás. No te
No veo poder ir ahí.
llegas pronto para variar.
Hostia, que es verdad, la vieja del principio, ¿quién coño está ahí? Es verdad, había una vieja. Moría una de estas, ya me lo dijiste, pero es que aún así yo no quería matar al perro, tío. Que le den por el culo una de estas, yo qué sé. Hostia, es verdad, la vieja. Al final, tío, el malo es un policía, del inspector del FBI. Señor Munday. La tumba de su difunta madre, Lucinda Monday, por lo que comprendo que noticias, pero entonces la vieja, ¿quién es? Hostia, espérate, ¿no será una grabación o algo? No ve qué mal rollo de esto. Claro, no es. Es un muñeco. Pues está enfermo del todo, ¿eh?
Eres un monstruo egoísta. Siempre lo has sido.
El chico a quien amé.
Oye, ¿quién eres?
Al niño. The Boy Who Loved. El que le encantaba. Adoraba las historias de miedo. Helen Blake. Estaba tachando la figura de la madre. Vivía con su madre. La puta madre.
Siempre vas directo a tu página favorita. Pedazo de mierda predecible. ¿Cómo te conozco?
Está enfermo el tío. Grabó a la madre, tío. Uy, yo pensaba que se le iba a encontrar de frente o algo. Ahora que subí aquí, tío, madre mía. Esto es meterse en la boca del lobo. Todavía la voy a cagar más, ya verás. Todavía se me muere alguien más o algo. Es como la música va poniéndose más de uy, uy, uy.
¿Estás bien?
Hostia, ahí está. Ahí está. Esto lo he visto ahora, ¿esto qué es? Negro, negra y ex. Ahí viene, todo tranquilo. Policía del Estado. Verá que mata a este también, ya verá. Mira, si este es el Salín, ¿no? Este es el Salín de House of Ashes, ¿no? ¿Por mí qué es?
¿Qué cojones? ¡Las manos donde las vea! ¡Ahora! ¡Los mató!
¡Hostia, se lo cargó!
¡No! ¡Se habla! ¡He dicho! ¡Que las manos donde las vea! ¡Qué bien que esté aquí! Tiene que ayudarnos. Hasta que no sepa qué pasa. Todos quietos.
El barco.
¿En serio, señorita?
Los que lo sabía, tío. No, mira la mano plonera, ¿verdad?
¡Joder! ¡Hay otro barco!
No, el Salín no ha durado nada.
¡Corre! ¡Vamos!
Venga. Por aquí.
Ya me coge la pistola para hacer jugar ahora a los héroes, para que lo mate.
Ah, no funciona. La cuerda de arranque. Ah, ahí. Joder, funciona.
Funciona, no, arranca. Mira, ahí viene.
Ah, venga, funciona. ¡Venga!
Uy. Se ha enganchado, ¿no? Se ha enganchado seguro. No, mira, el negro no lo dejó escapar. El negro al final se lo cargó. Entonces, quien dice el negro se la carga también a la niña, supongo. Ni perro, ni nada. 3 han sobrevivido. Bueno, espérate, que está todavía el tío.
Conseguido. Saldremos de aquí.
No, no, conseguido todavía no.
Todos.
¡Hostia!
¡Espera!
Vuelto el cartón que tiene. ¡Hostia! No me jodas. Pero si no he visto el botón que había que darle. ¡Hostia, que la ha matado! ¡Oh, Dios! Pero es que no me sobrevive nadie. Hostia, la niña que la ha palmado, tío. Toma. Y no he visto la acción, tío. No, la negra se la ha cargado, tío.
¡No!
Ahora sí. A tomar por culo. ¡No, me alegra que se la ha cargado! Se la ha cargado, tío, se la ha cargado. Me cago en la puta, tío, por una acción que no lo he visto en pantalla. Joder, la negra se la ha taladrado, tío. Te dio puta. Te dio puta, no. No me la clavado. La ha clavado la bombona, tío. Yo he escuchado el action y yo no he visto nada en pantalla, tío. Yo qué sé.
Tendremos el mejor rock clásico sin interrupciones.
Sin putos anuncios. Mierda.
Han sobrevivido 2, como en el House of Ages. Igual, 2.
Y miré arriba. Y ahí estaban en medio de la puta carretera, agitando los brazos como un grupo de tarados.
¿De dónde venía?
Fort Wayne. Conduciendo desde las 3 de la mañana.
¿Madrugón?
Intentaba llegar al puerto para las 8. Diría que ahora no lo voy a conseguir, ¿eh?
Yo diría que no.
Pues nada. 3 han caído. No vea la negra, tío.
Voy a mirar lo de ese estudio en Brooklyn. A ver si lo levanto. Tras esto, empezar de cero me parece buena idea.
Sí. Prométeme que me contarás cómo vas.
Solo si prometes seguir dándome consejos sin que te los pida.
Cuenta con ello.
Bueno, por lo menos me te da, yo qué sé. se ha cargado. Bueno, el perro ha muerto, pero es que al policía también se lo ha jamado, ya ves. Y el negro, el primero, el que aparece al principio, tío, que no era el malo, no era él. Mentira. No era la negra. Ha cogido la bombona, la ha abierto y se la ha clavado, tío. Le ha metido todo el helio dentro a la negra. Han muerto tres. Oh, tres tachados. Espera, falta uno, ¿no? Ok, no entiendo nada, ¿qué pasa?
Oh, estás aquí. Todas las cosas buenas deben acabar. Pero, ¿qué tal ha sido el final del equipo? Por desgracia, has perdido a varios. Así que mis condolencias. Charlie, me temo que al final la segunda temporada no va a poder producirla nadie. Erin, la chica nueva sorprendió a todos con su valor, pero ahora se ha ido a la gran sala de sonido del cielo. Y Jamie debió saltar en lugar de tratar de luchar.
Me cago en la puta y todo porque de día.
Y las cosas se pusieron feas. Muy, muy feas.
Pero no me salió de acción.
¿Y qué hay de los supervivientes? ¿Los ha cambiado la experiencia? Kate tenía un secreto. Estaba traumatizada por algo que sucedió hace mucho tiempo, pero se enfrentó a aquello que más temía en el mundo entero y sobrevivió. Y Mark tuvo que dejar de esperar a que le dijeran qué hacer y abrirse paso solo en el mundo. Me ocuparé del papeleo por la mañana. ¿Puedes encontrar la salida sin ayuda? Como siempre, ha sido esclarecedor. Sin duda, volveremos a vernos en el futuro.
Ay, muestra el siguiente juego, todavía no, ¿no? Supongo que eso lo meterán en un siguiente parche o algo. ¿Esto qué es? No me jodas. Venga ya, tío, venga ya, que se le ha comido la hélice y se le ha dejado todo sangrando el agua. ¿Qué dice?
Los sucesos aún no están del todo claros en este momento. Lo que podemos confirmar es que pasadas las 7:30, un camionero que pasaba se detuvo para prestar ayuda. La policía llegó enseguida al lugar del suceso. Los supervivientes son del equipo de rodaje, el equipo de Lonit Entertainment, responsables de la serie documental Arquitectos de la Muerte.
Joder.
Parece que finalmente se acercaron demasiado a su sujeto de estudio. Y algunos de ellos, tristemente, no han sobrevivido. Por suerte, esta horrible pesadilla ha terminado.
¡Hostia puta! ¿Recordáis que mi vídeo se hizo viral?
¿Cómo olvidarlo? Lo mencionas siempre que puedes.
¿Qué? Sí, he ganado un concurso con las visitas.
¿Qué has ganado?
Un viaje con gastos pagados para 5 a una isla.
No me lo puedo creer.
El señor Dumet dice que van a enviar
Madre mía, pero no será el mismo, será alguien que continúa la obra, no tiene por qué ser el mismo. No. ¿En serio ha sobrevivido, tío? Venga ya, hombre. Venga ya, venga ya. Esa es la canción del principio de... Claro.
Yes, I have come to get your soul and leave your body and leave it cold.
Mira la negra cómo se la ha cargado.
I said, oh, death, oh, death, won't you spare me over to another Eve? I said, oh, death, oh, death, won't you spare me over to another Eve? Now, death, if this is true, please give me time to reason with you. From time to time you heard and saw, so close your eyes.
¿No se puede pasar esto?
I'll lock your jaw so you can talk. I'll fix your feet so you can walk. And I'll dim your eyes so you can see this very hour. Now come with me. I said, oh, death, oh, death, won't you spare me over to another Eve? I said, oh, death, oh, death, won't you spare me over to another Eve? Now, death, please give me time to fix my heart and change my mind. Your heart is fixed, your mind is broad. I'll have your shackles to drag you down. Too late, to all farewell. My dawn is fixed, I'm summoned to hell. As long as God in heaven shall dwell, my poor soul shall burn in hell. I said, oh, death, oh, death, won't you spare me over to another Eve?
Claro, tiene los derechos a la canción.
Oh, death, oh, death, won't you spare me over to another
El Unreal Engine es el cuarto. El 5 todavía no lo he metido. Se le va la cabeza al inspector ese del FBI, de Quarry. Sí, eso sí lo escuché. Que el de Quarry estaba mejor. Estoy loco por pillarlo. Me encanta esta música, tío, esta canción, este tema. La palabré con uno, no me contestó y ponía ya reservado. Digo, me cago en tus muertos, contéstame por lo menos. Pues el de Quarry y salta esto al final ya, coño, fuera. El de Quarry el siguiente. Ah, mira, este es el siguiente, Casiopea. Cetus, o sea, constelación Cetus.
The ship has suffered a hull impact, but damage is minimal, and our technicians are restoring full functionality.
This is Thomas Carter. Something's wrong with Sims. She's trying to kill me. I think...
Mira, en el espacio, pues mira, ya tocaba uno así, en el espacio.
From orbit around humanity's future home. Staff it out.
Directiva 8020, sesión 2, primicia. O temporada 2. ¿Ya está? ¿Esa ha sido la primicia? Me cago en todo, puta madre. ¿Nada más eso? Ahora, en un próximo parche meterán ya el contenido del siguiente. De esta saga, de Dark Pictures, no sé qué. A ver, contenido extra. Pero este no se había ido. A ver, muerte con Morello. ¿Cómo? Dioramas. ¿No era la moneda? No vea el perro, tío. A mi enemigas. A mí. No vea la mora cómo ha quedado. Ya está, ya dimos moneda, ¿no? A ver, de 10. Ya está, total 12. ¿Cómo 12? ¿Lo que me queda? O total 12 de lo que me queda, ¿no? No, pero me voy a comprar más. ¿Y para qué me ha hecho comprar eso? No entiendo.
So, what do we know about this guy? He's rich, he's a recluse, he's obsessed with H.H. Holmes.
Creando o construyendo el castillo del asesino.
Creations from the murder castle. Dumet has blueprints, documents, artifacts.
Totally sane, I'm sure.
There are various elements we knew we wanted to explore when designing the hotel, from developing areas and set pieces that generated a constant sense of uneasiness and tension, to memorable trap rooms that forced the player into frantic life and death decisions.
I'm so sorry.
We took a lot of inspiration from Holmes' original murder castle, as we wanted to capture the way that Holmes' castle was created to disorientate and confuse his victims.
Welcome to the World's Fair Hotel.
As cunning as Dumet is, not everything in his castle runs like clockwork anymore. His operation has become so vast that he can't maintain everything, and the Lonic crew have turned up at just the right time to exploit that.
The production design for the hotel needed to reflect the original design, utilising a Victorian-style facade and castle turrets, interiors with ornate mouldings and panelling, being made larger to accommodate the game's intention to be used as a vast labyrinth to create fear and horror. This included the hidden rooms, sliding walls, trapdoors and secret basements, but with extra central monitor rooms and death rooms, all hidden from the guests, providing multiple layers and multiple levels to explore, unveiling the horror within. Special attention was given to the design of the areas such as the lobby, the bar area, and the dining rooms to provide an authentic, believable Victorian hotel, bringing a feeling of magnitude and foreboding to intimidate the player.
Guys? Is that you?
The hotel guest rooms were designed to be opulent yet aged, in keeping in style with furnishings and fittings.
El hotelito tiene cojones, ¿eh?
Window shutters installed to trap the victims.
Se supone que algo así hizo el Holmes ese. Aquí quemó al...
Designed to include mechanical sliding walls hidden within the Victorian framework, used to change the layout of the labyrinth throughout the hotel.
Fuck.
The murder inventions designed within locations included the suffocation and crushing rooms, furnaces and acid baths. The monitor room was a newly constructed area, deep within the core of the hotel. This room allowed Dumet the full control of the labyrinth and its workings.
In The Devil in Me, we make use of a range of mechanics new to the Dark Pictures series to help convey the unsettling mood and threat of the hotel. With an expanded focus on exploration, the player spends a lot of the time exploring the hotel's labyrinthian corridors, and as each character revisits a shared area, the feel of it changes. Each character has their own unique light source.
Cada personaje. Entrevista con Creando el Castillo. Entrevista con J.C. Buckley. ¿Quién es?
My name is Kate Wilder. I've got a master's in criminal psychology. I'm an investigative journalist and hope to make a difference.
Hey, we're here with Jessie Buckley to talk about Supermassive's brand new game in the Dark Pictures anthology, The Devil in Me. So let's start at the beginning. Tell us a bit about the character that you play.
I play a character called Kate Wilder, who is a presenter who's part of this documentary team who are doing a show about the serial killer H.H. Holmes.
America's first serial killer confessed to 27 murders. The number grew significantly. Nearly 200 lives.
I'm a serial killer documentary watcher. Is that your jam too?
Yeah, I'll watch a serial killer documentary.
Right, it's really relaxing. Like, okay, cool,
yeah,
I can
it's
chill
kind
out.
of fascinating why we're all addicted to kind of those stories.
We need a plan. Forget his games, traps, all that bullshit. Think about the killers we've covered. There's always a weakness.
I'm not playing detective, I just want to survive.
Playing detective is how we survive.
So what interested you in the role of Kate?
Well, to be honest, I've never played a video game in my life, and I had no idea what the hell the world was.
Que no juega nada, dice.
So that was firstly why I kind of was like, oh yeah, that sounds new and fun. And yeah, and then I read the script and talked to Alita, who's our director, and it just seemed like a really lovely thing to be part of and something new and fun. And I can't believe how they create this world.
Action.
You know, usually I just get a script and it's like 70 to 100 pages long, but there's like 300 pages in one script. It's unbelievable.
Esto les pillaría con lo del tema del COVID, a lo mejor sería no el año pasado, sino incluso el anterior, para la grabación de todo esto, supongo, no sé.
What's it like to film a scene, you know, multiple times with different endings?
What I've found is like you can only be in whatever strand you're in at that time and figure out the emotion of it at that moment, because then you can offer up something completely different when you go into a different
No, y tienen que grabar toda la animación, tío, todo.
Which I guess is also what a player will feel when they're doing it as well. So I just kind of try and keep my head in where we are right there at that moment, and if I was trying to think of what was happening in the other strand, it would be a disaster.
It must be really hard, yeah, because you kind of have this mapping, I suppose, in your brain of what, you know, what the outcomes could be, and then just trying to stay in that moment. It's very interesting stuff. So many things can happen to characters in the Dark Pictures anthologies. How do you make sure that Kate is always Kate, no matter what she's kind of faced with?
Well, I guess before we started, we did a big read-through with everybody, so it was good to kind of get a handle on who she is in the context of the environment she's in, but also the relationships that are in the world as well. It just kind of reveals itself from the script, and I just kind of let her run free and see what
That's so cool,
happens to her. Yeah, I don't think anybody has continuity in themselves. I don't, anyway.
Ya está, muerte con Morello. Eso que han entrevistado al el primer asesino en serie. Que este es el de verdad.
Secret passageways, vats of acid, and deadly vaults.
Y esto pasó de verdad.
In 1895, Chicago police unearthed horrific evidence of torture and multiple murders at the sprawling castle of H.H. Holmes. Masquerading under the guise of caring doctor, kind...
Un doctor, también fue enfermero, estafador, ladrón, asesino, con completito, ¿eh?
Solely for the disposal of human bodies. Torture doctor, monster of 63rd Street. H.H. Holmes was America's first serial killer. Just south of Chicago, the suburb of Englewood was thriving with commerce. The train station itself had 9 leading lines of railway and over 100 trains stopping there every day. No other suburb of Chicago had this luxury.
Estaba con una, se casó con ella.
Arriving in Chicago,
No sé qué pasó, que cobraron también un seguro, no sé, unas movidas, tío.
Located at the southeast corner of 63rd and Wallace in Englewood. Several months later, Everett Holton dies of supposed natural causes. Then Claire Holton, his wife, disappears after selling the drugstore to Holmes.
Reconoció 27 asesinatos, leí, pero la gente le achaca como más de 300 muertes, madre mía.
In addition to scamming creditors, Holmes obtained his funds from other phony inventions, such as a mineral water elixir, which in reality was obtained from the city's water supply. 1888. Holmes secures a lease on the vacant property across the street from the drugstore, the southwest corner of 63rd and Wallace. It is here that Holmes will make his horrific dreams come true. He will construct a building for which the entire world will remember him.
Tuvo los cojones para construir el hotel, tío, manda huevos.
Furtherance of his fantasies to make it reality. And probably if we had
como si fuera una fantasía o una obra de arte, algo así, lo que quería dar a entender, madre mía.
But not just plans for a building, because we'd expect to see architectural plans, but plans for his torture rooms.
For the suburb of Englewood, the building Holmes is erecting at
torture rooms, o sea, habitaciones de tortura.
Day after day, passers-by stopped to gaze at the spectacle of the many laborers working together to create a magnificent new edifice in their neighborhood. Englewood residents were so impressed with the massive building that they named it the Castle. From its outward appearance, it seemed rather normal. But like the duality of homes, the exterior and interior of the building were extremely different.
Holmes himself was the architect of the building. He was the only one who knew its design. There was this constant turnover of workers on the building. He would hire a mason to put in a wall and then fire the guy, or hire somebody to put in part of a staircase and then fire him. And there seemed to be several very sinister reasons behind that. One was he managed not to pay a lot of these people because he was always claiming that they were doing incompetent work. But the other, much more insidious reason was that no one except him really had a clear idea of what the structure of the interior of the house was. He had a huge bank vault installed in one of the rooms. And the way he did it was he put the vault in first while the building was under construction, and then built the room around it. And he bought this thing on credit and then refused to pay for it. The bank company said they were going to repossess the vault. Holmes said, well, come on in and do, but if you damage my building in any way, I'm going to sue you for everything you're worth.
The bottom floor of the castle housed a pharmacy, jewelry store, barbershop, restaurant, and a blacksmith.
Que la planta baja, la farmacia, la restauró todo el edificio entero.
Designed by the mind of a monster.
Lo convirtió en el hotel.
The third floor seemed innocent enough, containing rented rooms, legitimate offices, and Holmes's own bedroom. But it was the second floor that contained 35 rooms, many specifically designed as killing chambers.
Anda que no lo pasaría bien, el hijo de la gran puta ahí en el hotel.
Disorienting unsuspecting victims, the labyrinthian construction contained numerous staircases and doorways that led nowhere. For a quick method of hiding a victim's body, a concealed greased chute and trapdoor led directly into the basement of the castle. The basement held the most terrifying rooms, resembling a medieval torture dungeon. Acid vats, quicklime pits, and a crematorium disguised as a glass-bending furnace were Holmes's favorite methods of immediate body disposal.
Hijo puta, lo quemaba todo. Pero bueno, hasta que lo pillaron. Hasta que al final lo pillaron y lo llevaron a juicio. Madre mía, tío.
After cleaning and mounting their bones, Holmes would profit from his victims by selling their skeletons to local medical schools and universities. Holmes would make a killing in Chicago, financially and literally. May 1st, 1893, the world's Columbian Exposition is open to the public in Chicago. Spanning 600 acres, sprawled out along beautiful Lake Michigan, the magnificent fair is a monumental sight to behold. Over 20 million people from around the world would attend the dazzling World's Fair between May 1st and October 30th, 1893. Holmes utilizes the World's Fair as the perfect opportunity to capitalize on his demented design of the castle. Located only a few miles from the World's Fair, Holmes's castle was perfect lodging for tourists. Holmes decides to rent rooms to visitors of the fair. He entirely renovates the upper floors of the castle, bringing in the most modern furnishings and luxuries, all purchased on credit, which Holmes had no intention of repaying. In addition to placing newspaper ads for rooms to rent, Holmes visited the fair with several of Benjamin Peitzel's children, preying on elderly women who flaunted their wealth, making sure he invited them back to the castle for a warm night's stay in a soft bed.
They're not calling their relatives, telling them where they're at. They just know that they're going to Chicago to see the Columbian Exposition. Perfect victims, because they're unknown in the city. Their relatives, wherever they came from, know that they were coming to Chicago, and they never came back.
Nunca volvían, claro. Era perfecto porque eran turistas, no conocían la zona, no sabían a dónde iban.
Some of them got in and out of this place with no problem. And others, they walked in and they never checked out.
Habría que saber, que no sé, cuándo levantó la sospecha.
Hidden in Holmes's office was a master control panel which connected to gas lines leading into airtight sleeping chambers. Holmes would lead his victims into the rooms, lock them in, and turn on the gas, asphyxiating them while watching their demise.
Let me out! Holmes, let me out, please! Holmes! Holmes! Holmes, please! Holmes!
At the height of the World's Fair, Holmes masterfully juggles his castle businesses, renting rooms, dodging creditors, selling skeletons, and attending to the needs of the many women in his life.
I have had many young ladies in my employ, most of whom are still living in and about Chicago, whose parents and friends know only too well that far from being their seducer, I have done much to materially help them in their narrow lives.
Being a personable, attractive young doctor and businessman, Holmes won the hearts of many women throughout his life. At one point, Holmes managed to secretly have 3 wives, each never knowing of the others. In 1890, Julia Connor became Holmes's employee, living at the castle with her daughter Pearl. When she became pregnant and demanded marriage, Holmes agreed on the condition that she allowed him to perform an abortion on her. She agreed. Neither Julia nor her daughter Pearl were ever seen again.
Una hija.
Just a week later,
Que
Holmes
nunca la vio de
sold
nuevo,
a clean,
claro.
articulated skeleton to the Hahnemann Medical College for nearly $200. In 1892, Holmes acquired another mistress, Emmeline Cigrand, and employed her as private secretary. Holmes sent Emmeline into the vault to retrieve some papers and sealed it, suffocating her to death. Several weeks later, the University of Chicago acquired a female skeleton from Dr. Holmes. In 1893, Minnie Williams became Holmes's new private secretary and eventually his mistress. Minnie was the beneficiary of a property in Fort Worth, Texas, valued at over $40,000. Holmes murdered Minnie and her younger sister Nanny after having Minnie sign over the Fort Worth property to him. In 1894, Georgiana Yoke became Holmes's third wife. He married her under the name Henry Mansfield Howard. Like his other legitimate wives, Georgiana lived out her entire life. On July 19, 1895, Chicago police enter the Holmes castle. The world would now learn of the horrors that the castle had kept secret for so very long.
La policía entró y descubrió todo el pastel.
As disoriented detectives and police searched the upper floors of the castle, the true depths of Holmes's evil were waiting in the basement. Among the death devices in the basement of the castle, investigators find piles of mixed human and animal bones, bloody women's undergarments, and a wooden dissection table saturated with dried blood.
Dried blood, sangre con sangre, que habían, y mucha sangre seca ya,
Chicago police were inundated with names of people reported missing from the World's Fair. 50 missing people were eventually traced to the Castle of Horrors. The evidence, blood and bones found in the basement posed a problem for 19th century criminal investigative techniques.
It was very difficult to go and identify even the bones as being human in origin, because with the very small fragments you didn't have enough of the identifying characteristics to be able to make that ID.
The world is now calling
Lo quemó
Holmes
todo,
the
claro.
monster of 63rd Street, torture doctor, and the modern Bluebeard. Overnight, Holmes transforms from arch-swindler to arch-fiend. A Chicago journalist calls Holmes a multi-murderer.
The Holmes case generated this incredible amount of national attention and really international attention. Really in his own time and in America, Holmes was much more notorious and more widely known than Jack the Ripper, who was a contemporary of his. Then as now, people were very, very fascinated to sort of visit the sites of these terrible crimes. And his castle became a kind of tourist site. And there were various people who were wanted to take it over and turn it into a kind of murder museum. And then, just before some impresario was about to make it again into this tourist attraction. It burnt down. Somebody burnt it down. I mean, it could have been, who knows, some outraged citizen who didn't want this to become some very morbid tourist attraction.
Acabó en llamas.
Holmes's trial was kind of the O.J. Simpson trial of the day. It just generated this huge amount of publicity. The case had become a kind of national obsession. Of course, there wasn't CNN or Court TV back then, so it couldn't be covered quite as relentlessly, but it was covered very, very extensively. There were true crime books and pamphlets and all kinds of stuff. And Holmes himself had become a sort of folk figure almost, you know, the sort of national boogeyman.
The courtroom fills for the final verdict to be read. Holmes becomes extremely nervous when not one of the jury members looks at him. In his entire criminal
Condenado a muerte,
career,
¿no?
this is the moment Holmes never believed would occur. He is found guilty of murder in the first degree. Herman Webster Mudgett, alias H.H. Holmes, would be hanged on May 7th, 1896.
(1896).
While Holmes was in jail, awaiting the execution of the sentence, he was made an offer by William Randolph Hearst, supposedly for a significant amount of money, to provide his confessions. Holmes, who had already issued about a half a dozen completely...
Ahí está, confesó 27 asesinatos, pero le echaban encima unos 300.
He was going to die anyway. In this confession, he did a complete about-face and portrayed himself as the worst monster who ever lived. He just basically confessed to every crime anybody had ever suspected him of and threw in a few more for good measure.
He's reliving the fantasies after the fact now. He's reliving the fantasies of things that he did.
She was very willing to do this and prepared to leave the vault upon completing the letter, only to learn that the door would never again be opened until she had ceased to suffer the tortures of a slow and lingering death. The partial excavation in the walls of this room found by the police was caused by Latimer's endeavoring to escape by tearing away the solid brick and mortar with his unaided fingers. I closed the door and turned on both the oil and steam to their full extent. In a short time, not even the bones of my victim remained. It was the footprint of Nanny Williams that was found upon the painted surface of the vault door, made during her violent struggles before death. Only one difficulty presented itself. It was necessary for me to kill him in such a manner that no struggle or movement of his body should occur. I overcame this difficulty by first binding him hand and foot, and having done this, I proceeded to burn him alive by saturating his clothing and his face with benzene and igniting it with a match. As soon as he had ceased to breathe, I cut his body into pieces, and by the combined use of gas and corn cobs, proceeded to burn it with as little feeling as though it had been some inanimate object. I immediately took them to the Vincent Street house, and compelled them to get within the large trunk, through the cover of which I had made a small opening, and ended their lives by connecting the gas with the trunk. Then came the opening of the trunk and the viewing of their little blackened and distorted faces. Then the digging of their shallow graves in the basement of the house. The ruthless stripping off of their clothing and the burial without a particle of covering save the cold earth.
Puto enfermo.
I am convinced that since my imprisonment, I have changed woefully and gruesomely from what I was formerly in feature and figure. My features are assuming a pronounced satanical cast. My head and face are gradually assuming an elongated shape. I believe fully that I am growing to resemble the devil.
On the gallows, just before he died, he recanted. He claimed that the confession that he had published was a complete fabrication.
The extent of my wrongdoing in the taking of human life consists in contriving the killing of 2 women that have died at my hands as a result of criminal operations. That is all I have to say.
H. Holmes is hanged on Thursday, May 7th, 1896, just 9 days before his 35th birthday. At 10:25 a.m., he is pronounced dead.
He was very concerned that after his execution, his body would be dug up either by medical men seeking to dissect his brain and find out what made him tick, or just ghoulish sort of, souvenir hunters, and he requested that he be buried within a big slab of concrete, which he actually was. One of the things about Holmes is that nobody knows for sure how many people he actually killed, although in my researches, which were pretty, I feel, thorough and extensive, it seemed very clear to me that he murdered at least 9 people. There have been stories that he killed 50, 100, countless people, particularly in Chicago at the height of the World's Fair.
How many people did Holmes actually murder? Most likely, no one will ever know. Holmes and the many other people that came in contact with him are long gone, having taken the answers with them to their graves.
I was born with the devil in me. I could not help the fact that I was a murderer no more than the poet can help the inspiration to sing. I was born with the evil one standing as my sponsor beside the bed where I was ushered into the world, and he has been with me since.